Is it really?
Black hole of the
just
NBA.
go and die.
Yeah.
But we're giving our final Browns
And they beat
thoughts. Bull, I want to start with you. We kind of get a clearer picture now of what's going to happen on the injury front. We were talking about it on the morning call this morning. If you haven't practiced by today, okay, you can be a game time decision and you can play, but how effective are you really going to be? Tell us what your thoughts are on who we know. We know that Denzel's going to play, and for me, that was the big one. Tell us your thoughts on the injuries, the guys that are going to be there, the guys that we are hoping are going to be there, and where you are on all of that.
Well, my guess is that Wyatt Teller will be back this week because he had a limited practice 2 days in a row.
Right.
So usually when an offensive lineman gets a limited practice, he's going to play. So I'm assuming he's back. I think the interesting thing on the offensive line is that Jack Conklin practiced on Wednesday but then did not practice yesterday. And so I wonder if something happened there because he, usually if you get the veteran day off, as Bitonio does, as Myles Garrett does, Clowney sometimes, that's usually on Wednesday, not Thursday.
Right.
So it's a little weird for him to have a limited practice. But I'm not that worried about that because James Hudson, when he has had to fill in, has done a great job. The disappointment, and I just assumed JOK would be out again this week. But David Njoku not playing, to me, guys, is a big deal.
Well,
now,
he hasn't been ruled out, right?
Right. I'm going to say he hasn't been confirmed, but he hasn't practiced at all. So,
and that's a little troubling.
Right. If he, it's a sprained ankle. So if he's not able to go even limited on Wednesday and Thursday, that makes me wonder how's he going to play.
Well, have you looked at the weather for Miami? I know the hurricane is through Florida. My hope is it's going to be clear and not a wet field because I think if it's a wet field, you can just about rule Njoku out.
It's supposed to be a nice day. I think a high of 78, partly sunny skies. So it should be pretty much perfect weather in Miami on Sunday. So that's the biggest disappointment to me because I think we all kind of assumed that off the bye with a sprained ankle that Njoku would be back. But obviously that sprained ankle, at least it seems, and again, we'll find out this afternoon if he practices at all. If he gets in a limited practice today, then I'll change my mind. But as of now, it does seem like he's not going to play. And certainly they could use him to be a little more diverse offensively. But as you said earlier, Jay, I think getting Denzel Ward back for this game is huge because obviously their 1-2 punch right now is the most dangerous in the league. And so having Denzel Ward in the mix because you can't stop Tyreek Hill with one guy. It's not like you're putting one man. Not even like you're going to put Denzel Ward on him to shut him down. There's nobody can shut down Tyreek Hill on his own. But you want to have all your best DBs, and Greg Newsom's a little banged up too. He's had limited practice each day this week, but he's expected to play. But you want to have all hands on deck in that secondary to be able to slow down not only him, but Jalen Waddle and try to – because the goal with these guys to me is just don't let them break you, kill you for some 75-yard completion.
That's the key.
Even if they have a decent game, but there's not that one huge game-breaking play, I think they'll be all right. That's what you have to avoid is that huge one where maybe you blitz and you don't get there and it's one-on-one and Tyreek Hill gets over the top and it's over.
We can't have that. We can't have that. And we were talking yesterday, which it seems so odd, G. Bush, that with all these, he's approaching 80 catches. And with all this work, he's found the end zone 3 times. And it's almost like when you pitch to a power hitter that's in a home run drought, you kind of hold your breath because you know that sooner or later that lid's going to be blown off, and you come into this game hoping that he doesn't break a couple against the Browns and find the end zone.
He can do a couple of things. The first thing that he's able to do is we talked about he can run straight past you, right? We saw it a couple of times with John Johnson when he played for Kansas City. He just got behind him. There was really nothing we can do. But another problem with Tyreek Hill and trying to defend him is the fact that he can catch a slant and he'll give a guy a move, and then the next thing you know, he ran out of 3 angles, and he still went to the house. So it's like if you give him the positions throughout the field and you give him, if you're going to play zone because you want people we want to keep everything in front of you, they still are fast enough to get behind the linebacker in front of a safety and catch the ball in open space. Now the problem is, how do you get them on the ground?
Right.
So for me, I look at it, one of the biggest people is JOK. He has the speed to keep up seemingly more than Taki and other guys. But, he has to be able to be a good tackler. Tackling in space is going to be huge because They can throw a 5-yard slant, a screen pass. They can throw a quick little short stop route. And guess what? You miss a tackle, they're done. So you're going to have a lot of people on the field that are rallying to the football. You can't assume that one person is going to make the tackle. And I just think this is going to be a very interesting game, and Joe Woods' defense is playing, because usually I would tell you, get after Tua. But I think that you have to do it in a number of ways, not just blitzing, because you do leave them on the island, and you got to take a chance. Jalen Waddle and the rest of the guys, they can go right past you. So if you don't get home. So I think they're going to want to get some pressure with 4. They got to be multiple in the way they do it. But this presents a unique set of problems for the Browns that I think they haven't seen this year.
Mike, I always like getting your read, because sometimes you're amazingly positive.
Yeah,
And
I'm all over
surprisingly sometimes. And then other times you're super pessimistic.
Yeah.
And
Well, I'm manic depressive, so.
Yeah. So I know it
I
goes
think
all,
that probably plays into it.
it goes all over.
So we found out 2 things. I don't sleep.
I eat, I eat dog drugs.
Yeah, he's
No.
So where are you this week? Like, if your confidence meter goes to 10.
I listened to this, and I listened to I've been reading about it, of course. I've been hearing it on the radio. I've heard you gentlemen speaking about it, and about how we match up, and concerns about this and that. And it really doesn't matter when it comes down to it, does it? Because we know what this team is capable of. We know how good they're capable of looking. We know how bad they're capable of looking. So all these things where we're saying, I think we have a slight advantage here, and our defensive line might be, that really doesn't matter, because it's just what team's going to show up. We know we can. It's unlike in past years with the Browns. We actually know that we have the goods and we can win these games, which is a nice comfort, as opposed to in the past when we knew we were going into these things and we was just like, I wonder how we're going to lose and how bad it will look.
Right.
But now, last week or 2 weeks ago, we beat the team that went to the Super Bowl last year, and we did it pretty considerably. And that was the same team that looked terrible against New England. So it's really just a matter of who shows up, and so I'm in the dark. I'm at that point in the season where I'm just like, I stopped trying to look at as much at. I mean, it matters who's injured, it matters all that kind of stuff. But other than that, it's just like, are they going to play this week? Or do they feel like playing this week, or don't they? So that's kind of where I'm going into it.
It really is like a pop quiz every week. You don't know what's coming.
You don't.
You don't know what team you're going to get.
Yeah. Who am I basing it on? Are we comparing this to the team that we saw beat Cincinnati?
What I'm wondering is this not just the DNA of this group, of this team, even with the leadership folks that are there? Because in hearing you talk about that, we did the same thing to the Bengals last year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Why?
At their place. And we also lost badly to the Patriots last year.
Yeah.
Again.
And so as I'm looking at sort of the DNA of this team, the makeup of this team, the common threads that have been here now throughout the Stefanski era, I don't understand. I know that all teams are going to have good games, and all teams are going to have bad games, and there's a variance between your floor and your ceiling. But it seems with the Browns, their ceiling is here, their floor is here, and that variance gap is just
You're totally right.
too big.
And one of the reasons
guys, I think you're wrong.
Go ahead, Adam.
You are right, but I think that the fact that you're making it seem unique is wrong. It's not.
No, I know every team has a variance, but Bull, it just seems like our great games are not just okay. They're like the Bengals looked entirely inept against us last week and last year. They looked entirely lost. And then there were other games last year and the Patriots it's a good example both this year and last year, the Patriots games. You look at how bad we looked. We couldn't move it on offense. We couldn't stop them on defense. I know every team has a gap between the floor and ceiling, but it just seems like ours is so wild and so erratic that, to Mike's point, what the hell are we going to get? Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
But guys, we are so focused on the Browns, we're not paying that close attention to other teams. I could give you half the league where I could say the same thing about them, including the team you just mentioned, the Bengals, where they're high. Look at what the Bengals look like against the Browns, and look like what they looked like last week against Carolina.
Yeah, but that's your team that went to the Super Bowl last year, Bull. It does seem a little bit different.
And you know what? And I would say that they are a little like the Browns too.
Yeah.
They're a little more like them. Now, obviously, you can't use the Eagles because they're undefeated, but it just seems like we always talk about culture and taking the next step. I think I'm fascinated with golf. You guys know I love golf, and I love talking to professional golfers about their mindset because I think that sport more than any is one between the ears.
Yes.
And every golfer has always told this to me when I've asked about their games and their approach. They always say this: every guy on tour can make every single shot that we have to make. What it boils down to is how many of us can make them at the highest percentage.
Yes.
We're all great. And that's like in the NFL. They're all great. They all can make great plays. They all can score touchdowns. But what golfers will tell you, to be successful, to be a top 10 golfer, you have to eliminate your bad shots. You have to minimize your bad shots. And with this team, it seems like they can go out and win the club championship at any local club in the country, and they can also shoot 102 at a U.S. Open qualifier and miss the tournament.
Depending on their mentality that day, too. That's part of it.
Yeah, it's a big part of it.
Go ahead,
I mean, but guys, again, we could say this about so many teams. I just don't buy. I think we're freaking out. Like, this is why are the Browns like this? I think if we all followed every other team as closely, we'd find this to be the case with 20 teams.
Well, we all watch the league, Bull.
You also have to
right,
understand.
but we're not watching them. We're not watching all these other teams as closely as we watch the Browns. So
And
we're not going to know
look
the
at
other
we
teams.
also have a history
I know, but
here, Bull, that you have to remember, where we have been the joke for like 30 years, the go-to punchline.
Right, so-
Nobody's ever like, boy, I haven't seen anything that inept since the San Diego Chargers defense. It's always
Yeah, but
the
if-
Browns. So
if-
we have a
We're the bar.
Yes, we are. So even
But
if that's
Mike,
not as true anymore, we
Yeah.
are still feeling that in the back of our heads.
But if anything, the Browns have been not part of the norm for many years. They've been so bad. They haven't been up and down. This year, they're more in the middle, like 20-something
Yeah.
other teams. The goal of the league is for everybody to be average. And
Yeah,
the
it's
league
boring.
has kind of reached that goal with only a few teams. There's a few teams that really suck this year, and there's a few teams that are really good. And most of the others, 20-something teams, give you weeks where they look phenomenal and weeks where they look great, and then weeks where they're in between.
What I'm saying, Bull, is I want to be the Bills.
No.
So even when
Sure,
you
of
lose,
course.
you're losing in close games that you could win. You're not having that blowout, and then you're not blowing out the AFC champion one week and losing to a team that missed the playoffs in the AFC by a lot the next week.
G. Bush, champion of the Bills.
I got something for, and I was waiting to break this. I've had a little theory and hypothesis all along. We've been talking about one Nicholas Chubb and his carries, right? Today I was talking to Nathan Zagura. We interviewed him, and Nathan brought up a point, and I made it a point that I wanted to see if the pitch count hypothesis was correct. And this all ties in. You look at what Nathan told me. He said, G. Bush, the first thing he out of his mouth, he said, they don't want to have over 20 carries because they want to keep both guys healthy. And the second big thing, which is the smoking gun a little bit, is the fact that he said the Browns have an analytic and a number that says Nick Chubb has diminishing returns after carry 18, 19 to 20. He said that the Browns feel as if he is not as strong approaching 20, and that they want to keep both Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb within 30 touches combined. Now,
Well, we've kind of figured that from a distance.
we kind of figured from distance, but now that I know that they have an analytic that says they're not going to, you look at his carries.
G.
He's
Bush,
not-
just about every back in the league, though, has diminishing returns after carry 18.
Sure. Yes.
Unless you're Derrick Henry, and even Derrick Henry.
Right.
But some of these backs, you'll hear them say, it's almost like he gets stronger as the game goes on.
Yeah.
Chubb, you're saying, is not analytically one of those guys.
It's not, but they feel inside their shop, they feel that number is accurate. They think that if we keep him under 20 carries, that's where he's most effective. Now, the problem with that is what happens when you have to stay in the game. So we've seen Nick Chubb a lot of times with
Fourth quarter
on the sideline.
Drives me nuts.
And you're like, why is he on the sidelines? Well, listen, Stefanski, and there's a soundbite of him actually upstairs. If you go watch NFL films, by the way, this is how you know I'll be up all night. You watch the NFL top 100 players. It's a 3-minute clip. Stefanski's on the sideline. He has his sheet. He says, what do you want, coach? He's talking to Van Pelt.
Right.
What do you want? He said, you want Chubb? Yeah, let's get it. Let's get Chubb the ball. He runs the ball. Next clip. How many carries does he have? He says, okay, cool. He runs them again.
We don't know what the answer was.
We don't know what the answer was.
Right.
But the fact that they're charting, he has his during the game.
That confirms what we've been saying all along. He's on a hard, fast pitch.
Sometimes when we need him in the
But
fourth
he's not,
quarter,
because
they're
he
like, we've already
carried
used him
23
19
times
times.
last week.
So hold on, Bull.
No, that doesn't mean he's not on account, Bull.
Listen, here's the thing. So if you go to look at it, he had 23 carries, but the game before he had 16. Game before he has 12.
Sure.
They got a couple carries that if he doesn't use them the week before, they can dip in to get a couple
carry
carries
over like airline miles.
It carries over.
They're like carry
Guys,
over.
I got no problem with that.
But it's under 20. It is never going to be over 25. Now the problem with that, Bull, is you just talked about the situation with why are they so wildly swinging? Well, here's the point. When you have to do something during the game and you're game planning and you look at the flow of the game, sometimes you're going to be looking at Nick Chubb and be like, ooh, he has 12 carries already in the first half. I only got 8 to play with it in the second half. That changes the way you call the game. And if your team is predicated on the strength of the run game, that means you're going to have to lean on somebody else like Jacoby Brissett, which is not what you want to do.
No.
But you are being dictated by the stats. The analytics tell you how much they can go.
By the way, the reality is probably most teams do the same thing, number one. Number two, they have Kareem Hunt, who's a better number 2 back than any other team has in football. So it's not like there's a massive drop-off from Nick Chubb to Kareem Hunt. I just, and as the season goes along and as we get into the playoffs, I think those things go out the window in terms of, having just a feel for it. And
for some teams, I mean, but Bull, for some teams, I'll give you the baseball analogy. The Guardians were in a situation where they were sitting on their ace, but the analytics said, nope, don't throw them on 3 days rest, and we're home. And we're home. While the Yankees looked at the analytics and said, the analytics be damned, we're throwing our guy on 3 days rest, and they moved to the ALCS. So I know you're right. Here and there, you can go over it a little bit. If a pitcher's count is 100, he can go 106, but you're not going to go 115.
But Jay, Game 7 of the World Series, they went against the analytics. They pitched a pitcher on 3 days rest. How'd that work out?
In that situation, you're right. No, listen, and the analytics tell you that the ERA will go up. It goes up to almost 2 runs a game on 3 days rest. The Yankees looked at that information and said, you know what? There's got to be, for every 7 ERA, there's got to be a 3 ERA. We're going to roll the dice and think that our guy can give us the 3. The Indians, or Guardians,
it worked for them in that case.
It worked for them. We don't know
if it would have worked for Bieber. Yeah,
we'll never know if it would have worked for Bieber. We don't know. Yeah. The way Bieber pitched the second half of the season, I would have much rather lost with Bieber on the mound than in the dugout.
And if he would have gotten injured or blown that game, then we'd all be saying how we can't believe that they pitched Bieber that day.
None of us was saying that going into the game.
No, I thought. You're right. We weren't. We all felt fairly comfortable.
That,
but what I thought we were going to do was more of a bullpen game. It never turned into that because we know what happens from there. We have an injury update,
guys.
Hold on one second, Bull. We have an injury update. Go ahead, McNuggets.
Okay. We do have an injury update from Mary Kay. JOK back on the practice field today. He is back according to Mary Kay after missing Wednesday and Thursday. Njoku still working off to the side with an ankle injury. So Joker back on the field, Njoku still working on the sideline. Teller back at practice as well, limited capacity.
Okay, that's great
I'll
news.
take that.
Yeah, that's great
That Teller thing's big.
Bull, what do you make of that?
I think it's great that you have JOK back. He'll certainly be able to help, as I think G was talking about before, on the defensive side. And it looks like the offensive linemen are coming back. And even the fact that Njoku kind of worked on the side a little bit gives me hope that maybe he can get out there. I mean, I guess we'll see how they officially list him after practice. Because I don't think the media could see the whole practice. I think media only sees part of it.
Kick him out. Yeah, they kick him out after basically after calisthenics or whatever the stretching they do.
Are they savvy enough? Forgive my ignorance on this, to hide their hand as far as in front of the media, where maybe Njoku goes in and takes some passes inside or something like that because they don't want it to be reported that Njoku's playing, or do they not think that far ahead?
Well, you could jump in on this. My knowledge of it is the league is very, very, very particular on how injuries are reported.
Okay.
Obviously, with gambling and with all the money that's changing hands, they try to use that as the great equalizer, but it's almost a joke because for years, Tom Brady, I think, was listed on the injury report from the time he started his career to the time he left Tampa Bay. So, that's always
I just wondered how much they messed
up. I don't know.
I do think they think about it a little bit, guys.
I do too, yeah.
Right? You could list him as limited, like maybe the Browns feel like Njoku's okay, and if he practices today, they're going to list him as limited because in the media portion he was working to the side. So they can list him as limited, and in their minds they may think like he's 90%. He's good to go.
Right.
Hopefully that's the case.
I'm sure that